Okay. So what I have up on the screen right now is just is the warning message telling you you are running a pre-beta. The alpha walkthrough will take you to a walkthrough that will guide you through how to play the game, which we expect to be on rock, paper, shotgun. All the hardcore strategy fans can find out all about how to play this game. I'm hitting OK. And the options on the main screen here are you got single player, which is pretty straightforward, as your skirmish mode. You also have what we call the Ascendancy War. This is rather than a campaign, we're doing a little bit like we did, or not like we did, but what was done in Rise of Nations. You used to play Rise of Nations a lot, didn't you?
Actually, that was one of the games that I ended up sort of missing out on because I am part of the problem. Basically, I'm one of the many people who never jumped on that bandwagon, despite great reviews.
Oh yeah, it was a great game. What they did instead of a campaign, which was brilliant, especially at the time, and one we were stealing or being inspired by, is that it's more of a meta game. So you actually end up with a map of the galaxy in which multiple AI races are battling for control of the galaxy, and you're one of the players in there trying to capture, take over planet by planet. And there'll be cutscenes and stuff that gives you bits of story, but rather than a scripted, mission one, mission two, mission three, which is what we've traditionally done, we thought this might be more fun because it's much more replayable this way. So the next option down here is multiplayer, which is if you want to play multiplayer against people online, you can hit that. And we'll have a metaverse, which is more of a galactic war type thing. Ranked matches, which is pretty much what you have in pretty standard in the RTS genre. And custom match, which is your build a lobby. So as I click here, even in beta, there's a pretty decent community. There's a guy waiting to get a 4-player game going when I clicked on custom games. I'm going to back out of there. And the first thing I recommend people doing, though, with this game is run the benchmark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click on the benchmark. Now I'm running this in DirectX 11. Actually, I won't actually run the benchmark because anyone can do that. But unless you, the point of running the benchmark is to see where you're at, because this is a game that is using all the latest goodies of your video card and your hardware. And if you're running older hardware, you may have to set the options down. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on the options button, and there's a bunch of different things you can do on the options to increase your performance. You can play around with this. I'm going to go ahead and turn this down. I'm not going to restart. Usually, a lot of these settings make you restart. I'm going to do the changes because one of the things you'll notice when we load the game is that you can get into the game really fast. The downside is we can't let you go and make a bunch of graphical changes and then just have it update, because the way we get super fast into the game performance is by loading only the assets you actually need. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, did you want this stream to be public?
I don't know how to make it private.
Okay, because I'm just seeing we got 7 live viewers right now. Hello, people.
Hello.
Uh,
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
all right.
So the so next up here is I'm gonna go ahead and pick my map, and you can play on really small maps if you want to play on a map that's you can finish in literally 15-20 minutes, or you can play on a gigantic map. And I have on mine all some of my test maps. So I'll pick. I'm gonna pick Drenji. It's one of my favorite maps. It's pretty big, and then I can open it up to more AI players. And you can set. Now right now we just have difficult. One of the things the AI does on normal does not cheat. It's really smart and it does it without cheating, and that's because the AI is actually multi-core. It's able to send out analysis to itself to look over in background threads that go across your multiple cores on your CPU. So I'm all right. I'm now going to hit the start game button here and get into the game. And what I'll do is I'll wait until you're in too, and before I walk through what we're doing, so you can ask questions.
Sounds good.
So I have the graphics turned way down here for my system since I'm streaming and all that good stuff. So when you start the game, you start out with an engineer, and I can send them around to build stuff. And so what I usually do is I'll have them go ahead and build a factory. And factories are for producing your low-level units. And I'll usually also click on my Nexus here, which is basically my main base. If I do know you were a Company Heroes guy, weren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to seem very familiar then. Your Nexus is basically like your headquarters in Company of Heroes. And the map is divided into regions like Company of Heroes was. So you capture the region, you get the resources within. But like Total Annihilation or Supreme Commander, you can also build extractors on these things, on the resources. So I can queue that up and get even more resources out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and build a scout, and then a couple archers. Now queue them up over here. And I can also select my engineer, right click on a building, and it will assist in making it build faster, which is very much a Supreme Commander, Total Annihilation type thing. At the top of the screen, I have my two primary resources. I'm going to go ahead and send this guy over here, click on the mini map. At a glance, I can tell what type of resources are going to be in a region. Circles mean they're radioactives. Square means they're metal, and triangles mean they're trinium, which is are like the victory point source. You can already see there's creeps are starting to show up already. There are creeps that will protect these regions by default. They don't show up immediately, so if you rush, you can get there before there's very many. So let's see, walking through the some of the other goodies that you do. You have metal. This is what's called a streaming economy. That means you make resources per second and you spend them per second. So in this case, I don't actually have enough resources to keep up. So I was spending more resources than I had. So that's why I was negative there. And then I have 1 radioactive coming in, I have 7 metal coming in right now, and they will slowly accumulate in my inventory. And I can get more inventory by building, by researching tech. That'll do that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a control group here by hitting the Control 1 key. And I can then queue them up to go and start capturing regions. So I can literally zoom out here and right click here, holding down the Shift key to queue up where they go and send them off, and they will capture all these regions for me. Now what's not in this alpha build is that you can actually have these guys build orbitals, and these will gain you access to special abilities that you can do globally across the map. I'm going to go ahead and keep building up some stuff here.
Right.
Another thing you can do here, so in terms of talking about the units, you have your Hermes, which is your scout unit, and he provides radar. And a lot of units can shoot beyond their visual range if they have radar contacts. The archer is really good at taking out tougher units, but really vulnerable because he doesn't fire very frequently against cheaper units. The brute is the quintessential cheap unit. He's good at taking out other cheap units, the T1s. And the medic will do repair. And you can actually set up your combination of combined arms here of what you think works best, and that changes over the course, and then have it repeat the queue. So we'll keep doing this over and over again, so you don't even have to do anything. So I'm going to go ahead and create a second control group. So this is my second army. I can hit the space bar too to see how everyone else is doing, and I can already tell you they're kicking my butt because I'm red, and the other guys are slowly conquering the map. I will go ahead and send him over here, here, and then stop. You can also get a hold of idle engineers by hitting the F1 key. This will eventually be placed in the Empire tree here on the left. So let's talk about the Empire tree. And by the way, Rob, do you have any questions so far?
No, just keep going.
Okay. So you can see my control groups here. This UI will get fancier and more clear as time goes on and we get feedback on how it should be. I can tell you one thing I should be doing is moving my rally point for this over to here, which I do by just clicking here and going here, and then everything else that'll be built will come over here. And I'm going to also now build a sky factory. That will give me aircraft. And you can quickly see how you're going to end up with a lot of units as you start capturing points on these maps, because they just keep coming out. And so one of the challenges of having lots of units is, well, how do you make it not just be about cranking out the most stuff? And the way you do that is you take your units and you form an army. And when you do that, it becomes almost like, did you ever play Cohan back in the day?
That I played a lot.
Okay, excellent.
So back in very comfortable territory.
When you do that, we go into Cohan mode, basically. And that is, when I click on any one of these units, I'm clicking on all of them. All these units know about each other. They basically become one unit. And they act as one unit, which is a little tough because a lot of people who are not familiar with Cohan will think that making an army is really about making a formation. But it's not.
Right, and this was this was Cohan's whole like innovation, right? Which was Cohan was a game that cut down on a lot of the micromanagement, which is also one of the hardest things to sort of grok if you're an RTS player, especially if you don't play a ton of these games. So Cohan would have these armies you took out on the map that, at least in Cohan, were like led by officers, but you basically like set their stance and rules of engagement, and that conferred certain advantages. But basically, instead of having to manage like 1,000 different units, you had to manage 4 or 5 armies.
Exactly, and that's basically when we realized that we were going to be having thousands and thousands of units. Where we went is we started looking at Cohan as, hey, this is what they solved this problem. And they did it in a way that was really fun. It's really a shame that more games did not look at Cohan for inspiration.
Did you by chance listen to the 3 Moves Ahead we did a few weeks ago on the state of the RTS?
No. Did you guys bring up Cohan?
Basically, I had like a 20-minute rant on how Cohan, I think, was like the most important evolutionary branch for RTS that nobody ever used.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, then you're going to like what we're doing here, because once they're formed into an army, I'm going to turn this into an army too. I mean, it doesn't look like Cohan, because in Cohan they acted like one unit, whereas we don't do that. But it's really weird if you're not used to Cohan, because you'll see these guys, see how they're just maneuvering around each other in that?
Right.
It's because it's like, this guy here, these guys are moving around because this guy provides radar coverage. And so they're moving around to make sure, between the two of them, that they're providing the best radar coverage for the overall unit.
Oh, wow.
And it gets even crazier as you add more and more units, because you'll see the medics sprinting around on the outside. And in fact, let's start building some better units here.
So, a couple questions. Can you sort of change, like, you change sort of the formation or how an army's going to fight? Like, if you want them to rush in there and just take stuff out, is that a different setting as opposed to, I just want you guys to hang back and fight from a distance?
I know that the plan is, before release, is to make it so that you can have more stances. But we don't have that in the alpha yet. Right now, the big challenge has been making it so that they work without being squirrely.
Right.
Sometimes what the AI decides is the best is not a good thing. So once we have that nailed down, then we can do things like aggressive stance, hold fast. Another one is like hit and run, and so that it can, basically, by giving them broad orders, they will automatically try to form up in the best way to do that. But you won't have, because the idea is that each of these units becomes like a part. There isn't a set formation, because it'll depend on your unit composition. Like this unit, when I turn these guys into an army, see, I didn't even move them. I just said form army. They automatically start. They moved in an interesting way here that doesn't look like a formation at all, does it?
Right.
So that'll be one of the things we'll have to communicate to players, is that they're not. Oh, these guys aren't forming let's see. Let me turn this into my third army, or second army, and then move him. Since they're not training formation, it's all based on what it thinks is best for the unit. Let me go ahead and build up some of the more. Whoops, not do that. And you can even go here and I can attach an aircraft. One of the things that's really good to do is like see this. What you'll see here in a sec is that I've created a PAN, which is a orbiting scout unit, and then I can right click onto my army, and that adds them as part of the army too. So now my group here has, let's see, let me go ahead. My group here now has, as part of it, is an orbital scout that will go around and make sure that they have good visibility. So I'm going to build a bomber and harass the enemy, because I have to know the AI does not use airy well yet, and I'm really petty.
Yeah, just enjoy these advantages while you can, because by the time the game is done, you probably won't be able to win.
It's already tough. I can't
Yeah.
beat it consistently on normal, and that's just the AI play. And that's the AI, even with knowing I can try to bomb them out of into oblivion. Like if I was playing against a human player, I would need to have some air defense on around here, or else they would punish me for that. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and build some more units, and what I end up doing as I play the game is that I start. I start changing my mix. So a lot of people get used to thinking of these games as with build orders and that, whereas in this game, because you're dealing with entire armies, vast numbers of units, you start thinking of in terms of unit composition.
Right.
So now I've added a T2 to this mix. I'm going to go ahead and hit army again. And you'll see them again move in a way that will be completely unlike the previous army, because based on what's in here in unit composition. And I'm going to get my butt kicked here because the AI has been expanding all this time.
Well, maybe they'll be spread
I
out.
also like to do is to take my air units and I will give them their own hotkey, so that when I get into a battle, just like in a real war, I would go and call in the Air Force to do close air support, which is a little different than what people are used to, because like in Total Annihilation you would do this, but it's been a while since people have been used to the idea of just calling in units that fly like aircraft and have them come in and do stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and have them build more air units so that they're available.
So talk me through this a little bit. Because one issue I often have with air units is that they can be a little hard to manage, because usually you have to go select them and they're based completely somewhere else on the map, right? So you end up having this thing where your air units are not necessarily like visually part of the action on the battle, and you have to go and fetch them. And I'm curious if you have sort of an easier way here to handle.
Well, what I do is I actually tie them to in this army was too piddly to risk my expensive air units. So once I come up against a decent army, I have them tied to a hotkey, and all I have to do is hit the hotkey. Here comes an army. So an army is appearing on the map. So I just hit 7, hit A, and then attack over here, and an airstrike will come in, and I don't even have to leave the screen or do anything. They just come in a second here. I'm going to see my aircraft come in and decimate this group.
Oh, cool.
It's kind of like in Company Heroes, you could do that, but it was more abstract. Whereas this is, you literally have built these units.
Yeah, Company of Heroes uses the you have commander powers, right? And like commander can call in an airstrike.
Right. So on my screen here, I now have air dominance, which again I have to enjoy while I can. But they are going to make short work of this army here, because they foolishly did not build air defenses. Then again, neither did I. But that's because I know the AI's not going to punish me for it yet. What's ironic is I can talk. I'm talking dirt about the AI, and yet it's going to totally destroy me. In fact, here comes a 3-way battle. Now, mind you, we're only 15 minutes into this game, and I've already got a pretty big battle going on. And actually, another thing that I think a lot of strategy gamers will appreciate too, is that the units don't just die. right? Like, one of my complaints in a lot of these RTSs, and what they do this to keep the unit count low, is that they just have the units die off really fast. Whereas these units are designed uh, to fight and live for a while. So you're not going to just have this army you spent 20 minutes building and suddenly die. But you can see as this meta unit here. So I'm not, even though I'm not, I can micromanage if I want. But because it's a meta unit, I can already see my medics running around really fast and healing. It's not just a matter of, oh, the unit's close enough so he will heal because he happens to be there. It's part of an army, and because of that, I know that part of me is hurt. So I will go over to that part of my army and heal, which is a really big deal in a game like this. Yeah. If you're gonna have thousands of units, you can't expect the user to be managing thousands of units. They're only going to want to manage a handful of armies. So they're already starting to do some very bad stuff. If I look on a strategic map, I would have already surrendered by now normally because I have fallen way behind it. So if you look on the left side here, I can see the amount of victory points they have, their overall power rating. And the idea there, we went back and forth on this. I'd be curious for your opinion on this, is that we show each player's power ratings no matter what. And that gives away a little bit about how strong they are. But because we're playing on games, maps that are so big, is that we really don't want someone to feel like they just wasted their time playing 2 hours when they knew they never had a chance.
Yeah, that's an interesting decision, and boy, I'm not sure how I feel about it because I totally understand. One issue I have in RTS games is that a lot of times you just sort of like you can sort of be in the dark and then you just lose. Like you thought you were in the game, you thought you had a pretty good army, you thought you had a good position, and it turns out no, the other guy was way ahead of you. You just didn't. You only saw the outer edge of what they had, but they were miles ahead. And so, yeah, that can be a little frustrating when you just get blindsided like that, and it turns out you were never in the game. So it can be good to get a sense of that sort of context can be really helpful to sort of evaluate your own performance and what you should be doing when you play. On the other hand, though, I mean, that does sort of peel back some of the fog of war, right?
Right. Yeah, it's something we have gone back and forth a lot on because we'll go and say, well, you're kind of giving away who's winning, and that takes away a little bit of the mystery. But at the same time, I've played my share of StarCraft games, for example, where I was never in it, and a game lasts another 40 minutes, and that's not fun either. I mean, obviously, the one way is to solve that is to make it an option. I'm going to be calling in my air. Oh, if I was doing better, I would be looking for my radar contacts. Because a good player, which is clearly not me right now, would be looking for red radar contacts. Right. And, there's a radar contact. See that red? Well, you can't yet. But in a second, you're going to see a big red blob. And that means there is an enemy coming. But I don't get to see what. But what I'll do then is when I see a red blob, I send in the Air Force to go in and try to bomb it before they get in range.
Okay. Yeah.
And if
that's an interesting way to represent like approximate location.
Yeah, and if I was building more, I don't want to build radar here. One of the interesting things about this game is that the units have true line of sight. It's not radio based fog of war. So like where you build something matters. Like if I were to put a radar tower behind a mountain, it's not going to see it even an inch beyond that mountain.
Right. Quick question about the sort of the leaderboard here on the right.
Sure.
You may have already talked us through this, but I just want to revisit it now that we've got some context. So the number on the left-hand side. So right now, WADA on my screen, WADA just jumped into the lead. That number represents what?
This is just an overall power rating, which goes through their economics, their military power, everything that they're doing.
Okay. And then the number on the right?
the number on the right is the number of victory points they've got. So if you capture tritium generators, which are these little triangle things, if you have the most of them, it'll slowly start to tick up.
Okay.
Oh,
so
yellow's bold. So on my screen right now, a whole bunch of engineers are streaming in to try to fortify the position. The game does let you turtle quite a bit, and the AI takes full advantage of that, unfortunately. So he's going to probably go up here and build a lot of defenses here. I need to make sure he can't do that. But as you're watching the battles, and one thing that should be clear is that the units, while the units obviously do die, they do not die in one shot. They're designed to be pretty tough, so a battle will last a while.
Are we watching this game at full speed, or is this a slower play setting?
I have it at normal right now. You can control
Okay.
the speed with the plus and minus keys.
Okay, I was curious because like I wasn't sure if it's just sort of a weapon effect that the plasma shots and everything sort of seem to move in slow motion, or whether you had the game slowed down.
Yeah, the rockets move pretty slow. The some things move basically instantaneously. It depends on the unit in question. It's one of the ways we were able to, like, if you look over here, the units with railguns shoot super fast, but the plasma's a little bit slower, and the slowest are rockets. So, like, if you see the units, so right now I'm zoomed in on a little skirmish. You can actually see my units. Whoops, they just died. But the units with actual railguns, those are the fastest shooting. And the units also take wear as they take damage. Even in this early on, they'll even get fancier later. All the explosions and stuff are still programmed on.
But you mean like as they suffer damage, like the texture will start to change and?
Yep, you'll see them actually start to take a bit of a beating.
Okay. Now, as you've been fighting for a while here. Behind this, do you just have your factory set to sort of re-up unit orders that are pumping out fresh troops?
Yep, I literally have these guys auto building right now, which I forgot to. One of the things that you have to also do, which I wasn't doing because I wasn't paying attention, is that you also have to build these quantum relays. And the quantum relays gives you, and we're still coming up with the right terminology for the resource, but basically they give you access to what your central empire, for lack of a better term, and they are what give you access to getting new technologies and using your special abilities. So I can, for example, come over here and look at the cost. So there's a tech cost for increasing my logistics, which lets me have more units, my metal storage, my radioactive storage, and various combat upgrades as well. And then we're leaving these three. There's another 3 spots underneath each, and we're actually reserving those for our early access testers, so that they can actually submit what they would like to see in there.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and actually start to build up. Well, first, I need to start capturing those regions over here, because my early force got killed. And mind you, I'm playing on the biggest map. If I had played on a small map, this would already be over. 4-player, I have or 5 players on a big map. This isn't the biggest map, but this is a pretty big map. But these games can actually last a long time. But on a small map, the games can be over in like 15 minutes. Oh, in fact, my game may be over soon because he has gotten out, and mind you, the graphic settings are turned down to minimum. He's actually got a dreadnought out, and these are really nasty. This army could chew up everything I have, but that's not going to stop me from trying.
Oh wow, that dreadnought's something.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take my 5th group. I'm going to form them into an army, so that they can hopefully work as effectively as possible, and then I'm going to attack. This could end really badly for me.
So the dreadnought is a super unit.
Yep.
And,
now you can build as many as you can, but good luck building a lot.
Okay, so it's not like a one-off hero unit. You can, if your production can support it, you can spam them, but chances are you'll never.
If someone can afford to have 2 or 3 in a group,
game
and you
over
might as well
already.
just give up.
Yeah.
Because they're. Let me get an idea in terms of hit points. When I click on this guy, he has 11,600. I'm sorry, 13. He just upgraded 13,000 hit points, whereas these guys are like 100 points a pop. So this one guy, he's foolishly trying to plow through me. But even as is, I'm not sure I've not even scratched his paint. But I'm gonna still have the focus fire on him.
You have a lot of guys, man.
Where's he? I wonder where he's going. Oh, he's trying to get out of there, which is smart. But he's gonna abandon these other guys. He also has He also has some units that are really good at chewing through. So that unit right there is called Zeus. He has a lightning shot. He just took out a whole bunch of my guys.
Oh, chains between units.
Yeah, it's like chain lightning.
So out of curiosity, like the Dreadnought is one flavor of the Prometheus is one flavor of super unit, right? What are some of the others?
I also have. I'm trying to build one right now. So the Hyperion is one I'm trying to build, and that one's the Prometheus is designed for killing other Dreadnoughts. So he's not as good as against my army. That's not your ideal scenario. The Kronos is basically siege. That's where you park him and he can fire, in some cases, practically halfway across the map. Well, not this map, but smaller maps. The Hyperion is basically a pretty good all-round. He's really good at taking out smaller units. He's very vulnerable to the other two Dreadnoughts. But if they don't have a Dreadnought, then you can shoot. He's really good against them. So I'm going to go up to the strategic map, and since as a Company Heroes player, you'll recognize soon that you'll see blinking regions, and that means a region is not connected to my home region. I do not get the resources from it.
Right. So you have one last. What I'm saying is one last like slender thread, basically, between you and the other region, and you're under attack.
So what I have to make sure is that I connect regions, or I capture regions that are, and it's very effective against your opponent if you can go through and try to find a region with a lot of connection points, and then.
This is kind of interesting. It reminds me of a cool little indie RTS called Vertex Dispenser years ago.
Oh, really? I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, it was. Well, it doesn't even look like an RTS. It was just this like geometric RTS puzzle game. But part of it was the point of the game was you would move a little triangle along this like geodesic grid, basically, and capture the nodes, and they'd give you abilities. And if you built like little like as you connected more and more nodes together, the more powerful you got. But of course, like basically the game became about pushing one triangle into another, right, and sort of like breaking down the enemy geometrically. And from the strategic map, this game follows a similar sort of pattern, which is interesting.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that this game is not just about, because one of my first, if I were as a gamer, my first critique, or my first as a little bit of a cynical gamer, one of my first questions would be, well, is this going to be just one of those games where I poop out the most units and that's how you win? And that's something the game has to be able to answer the players really fast, right? Otherwise, because you just see a lot. If the screenshots all show lots and lots of units, then unless you can instantly and obviously answer that potential criticism, that's what's going to stick. And so when you see that the way the regions are, you go, no, really, it isn't just about crank out the most units. You can cut them off. You can go in, and there's actually special abilities that allow you to sending incursions behind enemy lines and stuff. So you can try to capture regions that cut off their entire economy. And of course the armies themselves tell you that if you don't create the right unit mix, and unfortunately I'm in big trouble. If you don't create the right unit mix, you will you'll get annihilated. Now,
tell me a little bit about what you've been doing with your tech tree during all this.
Poorly. I've been doing.
Yeah, it occurred to me we hadn't talked about it in a little while.
Yeah. So I have built 3 quantum relays. I really, to be honest, I should be building a quantum relay all the time at this stage of the game. I should literally have one of these guys going around and building up quantum relays. These give me the points to get tech. And where I'm really falling behind on the tech is, well, first of all, I have enough logistics because I have 64 out of 200, so that's fine. I could increase metal storage. So by clicking on metal storage at the top right of the screen, you'll see I can go from 500 to 600 metal storage. And it's an infinite tech tree. So this is one of those things that helps make sure we don't run into stalemates either, is that you can keep going up. So if you think of every tech as a level, so if I go in, for example, weapon damage, I can spend 100 and increase my weapon damage by 10%. And once I do that, I can do it again, but now it'll cost 125. And then if I do it again, it'll cost even more, and so on. And so eventually, someone's going to overwhelm everyone else. I'm really starting to get killed here. So the game is going to be ending a little sooner than I expected, but that's okay.
So so the infinite tech tree, that's something that I don't think I've really seen anyone embrace. Usually you want those things to cap out at a certain point, or at least people design games that they cap out. And yeah, that does lead to a lot of late game situations in RTS games where there's no longer a point to convert like an economic advantage into better units, right? And especially if it's a sort of a population limited game, that can be kind of an issue. You see it a lot in StarCraft, where like the relevant units are sort of all maxed out. But StarCraft, of course, has limited resources, so eventually what's going to determine things is sort of last man standing. If you can't break the stalemate, who's the last person with money to spend? But I am curious, like, what's the trade-off for an infinite tech tree approach to design? Because it's not something a lot of people have embraced. So I'm curious. Why there's been hesitation about that? What do you give up when you create the never-ending tech tree?
Well, in our case, because we don't have a unit limit, right? In StarCraft or in other games, you can build your 200 units or your 250 units or 500. I think in Spring Commander, there is no unit limit. So we have to have some way of making sure that we don't want players to get into a stalemate. So, and to do that, we just want to make it so that eventually someone is going to just overwhelm the other. And they can just create and it also allows you to pick between quantity and quality more obviously. This is ending very poorly for me. So they're in my base. I was a big man once.
Yeah, I had hopes once you rolled out your own dreadnought that things were about to change.
Yeah, remember when I had a dreadnought?
That was cool. That was good. That was a good like 2 minutes, minute and a half.
So he's attacking my seed, but what it means is that you're going to get games where I find personally it a little bit more satisfying in these games if I'm losing. Like even though I'm about to lose, I don't find this incredibly frustrating. Whereas when like in StarCraft, if I'm maxed out and someone is able to beat me because they came into my base with Brood Lords or Ravens or they did some other thing, having a long game end that way I don't find as satisfying as, like I said, as they just got ahead of me. This guy, he's going to kill me in a few seconds here, and it's obvious. I know what I did wrong. I don't feel like I know even though I lost, I don't feel like I was beaten by a sucker punch.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely like there are a lot of signs along the way that various ways you were falling behind. Like just in terms of leaderboard and like the fact that you can see sort of the state of the play on the map is really helpful for keeping you apprised at least of sort of where you stand.
Right. And then Pulse will edit all this so that it looks like I won. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. No one will ever know I just got beat
post.
by freaking normal AI. So, so my once your seed is destroyed, you're done. And that player gets the victory point, so that actually goes into his collection. And you get a summary screen, which in our summary screen is still very basic. That's programmer art, but you get the usual kinds of graphs and information that you might want to have here, and it submits it to our global metaverse type thing, so you can see how you're doing compared to everyone else and get lots of stats. But yeah, even in alpha, I mean, we're still really early compared to what we're going to have in the final game. Right now, we only have one faction. There's only one race. The other race, the Substrate, are coming in. They work on a completely different tech. So they'll be showing up early next year, probably in January. We have the orbitals are going to be coming in, which will allow you to bring down like orbital strikes. So I could have, in theory, have nuked that guy, so to speak, which not really, because there's a counter to it, and he would have surely countered it, but if he was that far ahead. But at least I had to have that hope.
Great. So that was that was really interesting walkthrough. Thanks for taking me through it.
Oh, my pleasure. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end the cast.
Yeah, and then we can chat a little bit about the game.
Sounds good. All right, signing off on XSplit.